And hello again, everyone. SpeedGaming 3 is back on the air with another race in the Link to the Past Randomizer Spoiler Tournament. Up next, we have daaanty versus matt7898 in a 2-in-1 match. I am Cool Papa Bell 2282 commentating for you today, and alongside me is Reg. How you doing?
Hello. We've got a match here for sure. Going to be kicking off in about 50 seconds, as we can see on the timers. Matt's counting up towards 15. daaanty's counting down towards 0. And these guys are currently hard at work studying the spoiler for this seed so that they can try to just not have to do anything, let's call it unnecessary.
Yeah, and I hear the last race that we saw was a little bit of a ridiculous seed, so I'm sure our runners are hoping for something a little bit tamer than that this time around.
Yeah, unfortunately, I did not have the pleasure of getting to see that one, but we've been told that it was, let's call it a disaster. That seems like a good word.
I think the spoilers tournament has a way of bringing those out, that Sahabot is like, this seed is too awful to give you in a regular run, so I'll save it for the spoiler tournament.
I mean, it would be nice if Sahabot were like that. Let's put it that way. But nah, the spoiler tournament and the format that we're playing here, like I said, these guys are not going to want to do anything unnecessary because that's slow. And honestly, to an extent, picking up things like pieces of heart is unnecessary. So you're going to see a lot less well-equipped fights, especially once we get towards the end game, than you would see in a typical randomizer run.
Yeah, and both of our runners starting off heading to the Uncle and Secret Passage. A really nice start there, grabbing a glove, 3 bombs from the Uncle himself, and then a little bit of magic as well. Bombs especially are something you really actually have to look out for in a spoiler seed, where you're going to find those initial bombs to do checks in Kakariko and that sort of stuff.
Yep. Especially both runners wanting to go straight to the back of the sewers here. So checking the Uncle, then taking those bombs straight to the back. And one thing that the spoiler log does have for these runners is the tree poles, the bush crabs, and the stun prizes, which stun prize we obviously can't get at this point, but the other stuff, the runners do know about it. And if there happen to be bombs on any of those, they can try to route those in a little bit for some assistance.
And no surprise there that our runners made a beeline for those boots. That's definitely nice to have a minute and a half into the run.
Here, I thought they were beelining for that bottled bee they pulled right next to it. I've actually got 2 bottles already, which is pretty nice. One even came with free potion.
Yeah. Interesting that matt7898 skipped the chest with the small key in it, knowing he wouldn't need it, but did grab that bottle. So I think both of our runners are thinking about making sure they have enough safeties for later on. The spoiler tournament definitely makes you run as lean as possible.
Yeah. And that small key could just be muscle memory or whatever. If he's got plans for it later, that might be interesting if we do see ourselves back in the castle for some reason. But to an extent, like we see here, he's just opening up every chest, getting all the goods. And I mean, he's getting bombs out of it that Matt did not get. So that could be a potentially decent advantage for him later.
Yeah, and also, I mean, a 15-minute study time feels like a lot of time, but you don't always have the time to route out every single thing. Like, where am I going to get rupees from? Where am I going to get all my bombs from? So sometimes you just open all the chests while you're in an area. If you can get 20 rupees here, 3 bombs there, you just grab them while you can.
Yeah, and getting that single arrow out of the first chest in the well seems to be a pretty strong indicator that daaanty's game plan here. Which, honestly, looking at what these guys are doing right now, the biggest thing to note is that the vast majority of the desync between them, even though daaanty is opening every chest and Matt's skipping some of the ones that have less valuable stuff. daaanty save and quit to Link's house by accident after the back of the sewer, so had to do that again. And he's keeping up, even though he was sacrificing the 2 seconds per chest there.
Yeah, it's just things get compressed in the spoiler log. In an open seed, 3 or 4 minutes is pretty close. In a spoiler log, it's like 30 seconds to a minute is a close race. So little things like that can actually have a huge impact.
Yeah. We're into the Dark World already. We've sort of been skimming over the items that have been found, but Mitts plus Moon Pearl lets us lift rocks, a fire rod in the chess game, and now a dip into Pendant Thieves Town for Matt.
You see those pendants and crystals already along the bottom there. Our runners are not going to check the map, of course, since that's given to them in the spoiler log.
Yep. And they're not going to go out of their way for the Mire and Turtle Rock entry information, as we actually get the Mire medallion this seed out of that chest. So, just for viewers' convenience, we've got them all there for you. daaanty went up to Skull Woods, a bit of a detour, grabbed the Book of Medora. Could not complete the dungeon without that fire rod first, but honestly, on 4 hearts, a fighter sword, and a fire rod, Mothula looking pretty intimidating right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's a 5th heart. We'll see if either of our runners really wants to tackle that right away. It feels like that daaanty wanted to grab that book and is not going to be doing Mothula right now, but we'll see if Matt makes the same decision.
Yep. The big thing to look out for, is he just going to go in here, or is he going to the back? He's just going in the front. And taking the save and quit. So where's he off to now? Got a couple options, depending on how far in or out of logic you want to go.
Yeah, that book might point them toward the desert at this point.
Yeah, I've seen this exact sequence of screen transitions several times in vanilla. This is absolutely Desert Palace, and the menu to the book just confirms it. So following that up right away. And of course, gloves plus fire and boots. Dungeon is full clearable.
Fighter Sword Landmo sounds a lot more appealing than Mothula.
Yeah, and you can throw some bombs in on it too. And then we're seeing more divergence here. Matt's chasing the dungeon directly. daaanty detouring a bit over towards the hobo. So, gonna see what the goods are here. Of course, saw that hook shot come out there. See a hammer on Matt's side, so if you're feeling confident, that hammer can be a great weapon even against the Landmolas. But it's probably the best one he's got in my estimation right now too.
Yeah, of course, doing that tempered sword damage will go a lot faster if you can deal with the terrible hitboxes of the hammer.
Yeah, the hitboxes are terrible, and honestly, the Landmola hitboxes aren't too terribly friendly either, since they're basically just those heads. And we do see Matt opting not to go to the back at this point. But daaanty finds a usable weapon on the Zora ledge, and with the flippers, he can pull that right away.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense on Matt's side, I think. because we're going to have to be back in the desert area later to clear mire anyway, so you might as well do Landmo when you have better weaponry than our runners have right now.
Yeah, that's definitely, like, if you can find, say, just more magic for that fire rod, that's a lot of runners' weapon of choice against Landmolas. If you can find silver arrows, that's obviously fantastic. daaanty now has the opportunity to do a vanilla no major glitches style Landmolas fight with that bow, although a little short on arrows.
And let's see, is Matt headed back towards Skull Woods at this point? Or nope, it looks like we're headed up the mountain, actually. Now that we have Hookshot and Hammer.
Yep, Hookshot, Hammer, Mitts, we can do it all on Death Mountain. Well, I guess except Turtle Rock, but nobody wants to do Turtle Rock. Not when it's a pendant. And Matt showing that the Dark Old Man Cave is absolutely no trouble. So, just getting 20 rupees and probably more importantly, the save and quit spot.
And daaanty collects his hammer. Also going to grab the big key while he is here in the front of Desert Palace, and I would suspect we'll also see him just save and quit out of here.
Yep, that's going to be the story of the day for Desert Palace. But like you said earlier, we'll grab the mirror at some point because we've got to do Swamp Palace regardless. And got to grab the flute at some point to get to the mire area. So we'll just come back and do desert at that time.
Yeah, I guess that's technically a double dip of Desert Palace, but it doesn't really count.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel nearly as bad as one either. Do see Matt taking a pit stop over in the Paradox Cave, getting himself some armor and a 6th heart. So looking pretty good on the defensive front for now.
Yeah, Blue Mail is going to feel pretty comfortable, I think, for both of these runners. I was saying before this race, I was kind of surprised to see this match at 2-1. These are both some really excellent runners, so just kind of gives you an idea of the caliber of runner in this tournament.
Yeah, especially because we've got 64 runners, and I agree that I could easily see this as a 3-0 match if some pairings had shaken out a bit differently. But there's a lot of strong competition in this tournament. daaanty gonna have to be a little careful trying to run around all the fixed damage crap on Death Mountain. If he takes a hit, he's dead, but I think he's... No, he got dead rocked. That's unfortunate.
Oh, unlucky.
Opts to burn that potion here, which probably just good psychologically speaking, but that might hurt later.
And I was about to say, we had not seen much up on the mountain but convenience, but Matt picking up that red cane, which will, of course, allow us to complete Misery Mire once we find the flute and get access to that dungeon. So that was definitely a required extra trip up the mountain.
Yeah, and considering we didn't see any detours over to the Tower of Hera, my suspicion is that unless there's something in Turtle Rock that these guys couldn't get at now, this may be our only trip to the mountain until we're ready for Ganon's Tower.
Yeah, and I mean, there's hardly anything that could be in Turtle Rock that they couldn't get to. They had Mitts and Hammer up there. Oh, no Ether Medallion, I guess. But yeah, probably we will not see them up on the mountain again until the very end.
Yep. The big thing is that Ether Medallion is somewhere. Although, honestly, the only real progression we picked up on the mountain is that Cane of Samaria. So the only location that Ether could be that I think they wouldn't have grabbed it sooner is on Vitreous.
Ooh, interesting. So daaanty seems to be skipping Bunny Cave, which is where Matt found that lamp. So daaanty might be committing to just going lampless through this seed.
I thought you were lumping lamp in as just a convenience when you were talking about mountain progression earlier. He's going for it.
I mean, lamp is mostly a convenience, but it's definitely one that most runners will pick up if it's in their path, so.
Yeah, we've got Matt trying to set up Icebreaker here. Was having trouble finding the pixel to get things done, but a few pause buffers and he is well on his way now. And now the question remains, where is daaanty off to? He's choosing the Dark World instead. So, a good pull on Matt's side there.
And looks like daaanty's going to take a quick stop in Hype Cave. Grabs the silver arrows.
Honestly, with the loadout they've got right now, especially just the one sword in hand, silver arrows are a fantastic weapon to have. Unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, but one of the things that you can't hit with the arrows is Cold Stare, which Matt's dropping into right now. So Matt not really losing out on that order of operations, but we'll have to kill Cold Stare with just this fighter sword and a hammer.
Yeah, this is not an easy fight.
And taking a hit there, gonna burn his potion, and then right back to the hammer. Or right back to sword spins, excuse me, I'm a liar. No. When did he pick up that second red potion? Oh, he picked that potion up at the Hylia shop, didn't he, before going into the dungeon?
Yeah, he grabbed the extra one on the way in.
Very good call, especially if he completes this fight.
Gets the first puff down. Oh,
yeah, that's unfortunate for him. I was about to say that having one puff down does decrease the danger significantly, but it's still a very dangerous fight, and you hate to see it, because that's one of the worst places to die in the entire game.
Yeah, and that tells you that probably the swords are in some out-of-the-way locations, since our runners were sort of trying to commit to fights like that with just fighter sword. Because again, those hammer hitboxes are not the friendliest, and with those cold stare puffs moving around, that's a really difficult fight to get through with the hammer.
Yeah, like, you've mentioned hammer hitbox, and that's absolutely an atrocious hitbox, but I want to talk about the opposite for a sec. Sword spins are an incredible hitbox, so just being able to have a decent sword to do spin attacks with Like, even just the Master Sword would be a great help in that fight if you want to go for that sort of strat. It's a lot safer at any rate, even if it is a little slower, probably.
And there is that Master Sword on Dante's side, so that might explain his routing choice. Went a little bit out of his way to get those bows earlier on. Probably was thinking about trying to get to Pod for that offensive upgrade right there.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And honestly, the way this seed has developed, we're looking at offense being maybe the best safety in the game right now.
Ooh, are we going to see a hover over to the right side from Dante? He's going to give it a shot.
Yeah, gonna lose it pretty much immediately, though, and get sent all the way back to the north side of the room.
That is an extremely precise hover, just on top of how difficult hovering is on its own.
Yeah, I've seen the most notorious and proficient hovers in the community fail that one repeatedly. So that's definitely like, you're showing off how good you are if you can do that one, but it does save a ton of time because you can skip this whole right side trip. On Matt's side, we have seen him audible over to Swamp Palace. Obviously, nothing more of real value in ice to be had aside from potentially a cold stare drop. But looking at items, do we need anything other than the flute to get all 7 crystals at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that flute is all we're looking for. We have seen Master Sword, so, we can defeat Ganon at this point.
Yeah, so it's just the flute for a boss rush mode. That's very likely not on cold stare just because it's right there. All right. Unfortunately, Matt pushing this statue means he's not going to show us the nifty little diver down trick just to save himself the few seconds of unflooding that room. But that's fine. That's only a handful of seconds to save.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense to do when you're going to check those chests, which Matt has clearly decided not to.
Yeah, and then just... Oh. There we go.
Oh.
Maybe it's just...
Maybe going to pick up some hearts, yeah.
It could just be a lack of practice with the trick. It is still a relatively new trick. And I think not every runner has put in time for... Oh, wait. Oh, chat's calling out a very good reason not to do it. He has exactly 1 bomb, and he has no magic to use the Canis Maria variant. So if he messed up his bomb placement, which is fairly precise, then he would have to lose time, just walk back. So yeah, I didn't even notice his bomb counts. Thank you, chat.
Yeah, and not only is the bomb placement precise, of course the jumping in the water and back out is pretty precise as well, and you only have 1 shot to do it while that bomb is ticking down, so very unforgiving in the bomb setup.
Right. So that's a very good reason not to do things. But while we were talking through that, Dante showed off the power of those silver arrows on offense. He had to knock down Helmasaur's mask by hand, but the arrow 1 to the jewel put him down and got a shield for his trouble. And Matt having to hook these puffs with just the fighter sword. You cannot slash them, you have to spin them. Takes 2 fighter sword spins to kill a puff. The good news being that if you get 1 spin, it's likely to hit twice just because there is no knockback on the puffs. And then there we go with 4 hammer hits. That is Argus down for Matt.
And so we can sort of see the difference in philosophies of the routing between these two runners. I think daaanty was trying to get as much firepower as possible before this Ice Palace dip, prioritizing that Master Sword. Whereas Matt was trying to get, I think, to the flute as quickly as possible just to be able to take advantage of flying around, of course. But that meant he opted into that much tougher Cold Stare fight on just Fighter Sword. So I think I'm going to have to give the edge to daaanty after we've seen the way the first 20 minutes of this race have shaken out.
The way that things actually played out, I do agree with you. In principle, I think that Matt had the faster idea, but it had a much higher barrier of execution to actually pull it off properly. And his Cold Stare fight regrettably went south, so was not able to. But if he was able to get that kill, he would be in an amazing position right now.
Yeah, he would be basically a whole dungeon ahead of daaanty at this point with that. If that Cold Stare fight had gone better. He's going to go ahead and rescue the blacksmith.
Pretty good time to do it. You want to be in the region so that you can turn in the flute. So something we overlooked a second ago, though. Matt needed a few pause buffers to get his icebreaker. daaanty like, nah, I don't need that. And he's just doing it with a sword buffer incredibly smoothly. So that was very well done on his part.
And Matt does have the purple chest with him. So it looks like he'll be turning that in as soon as he activates the flute.
Yep, the position he's in, the checks he made, he can just flute right to 7 and not lose a single step to turn that in. But you're seeing now on daaanty's side, just as we saw on Matt's earlier, how fast of a dungeon Ice Palace can be, especially with the Icebreaker tech. But I don't think daaanty has any potions.
Yeah, getting some good extra slashes off on the puffs in the corner.
Matt did turn in that purple chest for a third sword. Well, third relative to what we know, second for him. I think he knows he will be getting his third out of Palace of Darkness here as daaanty slashes at the puffs, playing a relatively safe fight and doing a good job of dodging the falling ice as well.
Yeah, so another interesting strategic choice from our runners. Looks like Matt is probably going to be doing a tempered silverless Ganon fight, whereas daaanty is probably going to wind up with Master Sword and silvers since he went out of the way to get those silvers, probably because he thought that the third sword was not going to be worth getting.
Yeah, the way he's playing, I can see that third sword getting skipped for him because I think he's got the hardest thing in this seed, just looking at the boss list, to do on Master Sword probably would be Cold Stare, in my opinion. And he took that down like a champ. Meanwhile, Matt, unfortunately, not able to get it, but he'll have Tempered after this, and I think he's taking absolutely no chances with the rematch.
Yeah, you saw how much more efficient the Master Sword was in that Cold Stare fight over the Fighter Sword, and Tempered to from Master to Tempered is probably just as big of a step up.
Yeah, damage-wise, I would call it a bigger step up even, because the quick kill strats that you can do with the Tempered Sword against Cold Stare, not really possible with the Master Sword. But the Master Sword's biggest advantage over the Fighter Sword is probably actually the range and the fact that normal slashes work. That gives a lot more safety in the fight, and daaanty took great advantage of it throughout that entire thing. But here's sword advantage for Matt. Let's see how that plays out over what's left of the seed.
Yeah, the silver arrows will wind up being useful on the Vitreous fight, but Matt having Tempered Sword for that, the sort of standard NMG Vitreous fight is pretty much the same speed as silver's. It's only when you get into the second phase and actually taking down the big eyeball that it's a little bit slower.
Yep. If you execute the first phase perfectly, there is essentially no time difference between the two strats. The second phase is just a difference of 2 arrows versus 8, depending on whether they're silver or not. And that's really the biggest reason that I said the hardest boss fight daaanty would have this seed, at least until Ganon, was that cold stare that he's already got down. Everything else with the arrows in hand is going to be a lot easier and a lot safer for him. daaanty is showing off a variant of the diver down trick that doesn't actually involve going into the water. So, a little bit of speed gain there compared to the normal setup.
And that's only, 3 or 4 seconds. But again, it's sort of that cold stare fight paying dividends, right? Because Matt ran himself out of magic and then didn't get the refill since he didn't actually complete Ice Palace. So that was just kind of an unfortunate follow-on effect from that very tough cold stare fight.
Yeah, that definitely... you're absolutely right about that, and it wasn't something that I had considered at the time, didn't really have it in mind at all, but it's really just unfortunate the way that one played out for Matt, and we're just looking to see what the time looks like as he recovers from that and is knocking out other dungeons instead. But that is simultaneous boss kills there. daaanty downs Argus, Matt downs the Helmasaur King, and the crystal score is an even 3-2, with Matt needing to go back through Ice Palace and kill Cold Stare at some point. Which really that means that they would be exactly even right now, plus or minus sword difference, if Matt hadn't died to Cold Stare. That's incredible.
Yeah, and daaanty's also got to go activate that flute, so you figure he's going to loop in the trip back into Skull Woods at the same time as that.
The way he's been playing, I would expect that, yeah. And then probably the Mire Desert play that Matt's doing now, and then just up to the mountain for him, and that would be it. The way things are looking, the only pendant dungeon we had to go into this seed was Thieves Town for that quake in the front of it, so even though things have gone a bit awry as far as the offensive availability goes, especially with the swords this seed, this has been a fairly solid seed on the item placement front for these guys.
Oh, very nice Mire too from Matt. Gets that one cycle on the Whiz Robes. That's just my favorite room to watch done well.
For my money, that's the single hardest room in the game to do well. So, always impressive to see somebody clear it out in one cycle. Here we do have daaanty grabbing the smith, so it does look like it will be a tempered sword for him. Just a little out of order, was able to do Cold Stare without it. But gonna be nice to have, at the very least for the Mothula Ganon.
And I don't want to speculate too much, but in this tournament, unlike most tournaments, runners are allowed to watch their opponent's screen or the restream as well. So there's always a chance that daaanty has seen that he has a little bit of an edge and is adapting his route a little bit to go ahead and pick up this this tempered sword. We'll have to ask him afterwards if this was his plan all along.
Yeah, it would definitely be interesting, because that would resolve a lot of questions about the timing of it. But I guess really, with the way that the flute played out, needing the mirror in Ice Palace to get the flute out of Swamp Palace, Tempered Sword at the step he's doing it is functionally optimal, and it's basically what Matt did, just with the exception that Matt unfortunately has to backtrack through Ice Palace.
Yeah, I was also just thinking that it might have, I think I liked the route that Matt took to rescue the Smith a little bit more. He just did it right out of Swamp Palace and then ran up to the Village of Outcasts from there. But I'm not sure if it was actually faster or not. It just feels a little bit better, but it's really hard to judge that, again, especially in the very limited amount of time that our runners have to plan out their routes.
Yeah. But we do see some very nice spooky action from Matt there. At this point, the glitch has been around long enough that, while not a classic of the game, pretty well known and understood, but definitely well done all the same. And he's showing off the vanilla no major glitches strats for Vitreous here. Out of arrows, though, so gonna need some sword spins. That's down for him. Not completely optimal by any means, but very good considering his arrow count didn't support the optimal fight. Of course, we do see on daanty's side, he's only got 5 arrows. So will be interesting to see how he approaches that when he gets there. I would expect the same strats from him if he doesn't find more arrows between now and then.
Yeah, that will definitely nullify some of the advantage that he has gotten from picking up silvers if he can't actually use them during that Vitreous fight. But assuming he does the standard NMG spins to get through there and then just saves the arrows for the second phase, it should be fine.
Yeah. So, I guess the other big question is how Matt approaches the Lanmola's fight. But in this case, it's just more because he's got options between the Tempered Sword and the Fire Rod than necessity of using more dangerous strats, let's say. And I guess it's also worth noting that Mothula was a little bit uncooperative for daanty. It wasn't really a dangerous fight by any means, but it was one where he had to get Moth out of the corner a couple times to land the killing blow. So keep an eye on if Matt is any friendlier, if he can save any time there.
Another small point, both of our runners are opting to do Misery Mire before Desert. I believe that picking up the crystal in Desert messes with your altitude variable and so disrupts the spooky glitch. So usually a better idea to do Mire first if you're wanting to take advantage of that spooky.
Yeah, that makes total sense, actually. There are a lot of things that can mess up that variable, like I think spamming arrows to kill the Armos Knights is one of them as well, or am I mixing that up with a different trick?
It certainly does something to Ancilla slots, because I know it can mess with Splash Delete.
Okay, that may have been what I was thinking of then. But I do know that there are some other things, like spamming the lamp or using the magic powder will also break your spooky. So, arrows just not quite the same.
We should also shout out Matt's Lanmo fight there. used 1 tempered spin and 5 fire rod shots. That's also a pretty common strat to do in Landmo 2 when you're trying to preserve some of your magic for the rest of the GT climb, but very nice 1-cycle Landmo fight.
Yep. And it's the tempered sword spins do the same damage as the gold sword, which does the same damage as either rod, fire or ice, to the land molas. I know that a lot of casuals are a fan of using the ice rod against that boss, and I've seen some randomizer players resort to it in a pinch. But fire rod is definitely the generally preferred weapon there for its speed and the fact that it doesn't lag. And actually, do you think it's possible we see Matt take a temporary crystal lead here at 5-4? Can he kill can he kill Mothula before before daaanty gets back there and kills Vitreous?
I think he should be able to. Oh, I like that. Takes damage off the spike, so he doesn't have sword beams for this fight.
Yes, sword beams, they're great in very specific spots. Matt puts out an absolutely beautiful Mothula fight, getting a couple of those dash pokes and just get easier and free damage. So yeah, we've got Matt on 5 crystals out of 7. Excuse me, words. I'm sorry, but that's a crystal lead for him, at least temporarily.
So yeah, we will see if he can get through Ice Palace before daaanty finishes off Landmo.
I don't think that'll be the case even with Icebreaker, but the fact of the matter is this race is actually a lot closer than it may have looked even just a few minutes ago. And
yeah, daaanty definitely does have some free time waiting for him in the Ganon fight with those silver arrows.
And daaanty unfortunately messed up his strat, so he is forced to not damage boost anymore and forced to wait for these small eyes to come to him. But that is all of them down, so now he can just plop those arrows in. And now it's daaanty's Back of Desert Palace versus Matt's Go Mode Ice Palace is the difference here.
And we should also take a look safety-wise. daaanty has more health, but only blue mail, whereas Matt upgraded to red mail. That was part of his walk up to the Village of Outcasts after Swamp Palace when he picked up the Smith. Also got red mail out of Cave 45. So we'll see if that comes into play on the GT climb at all.
Yeah, that's... Honestly, if you want that mail, which Matt clearly did, I do think that even if walking from Swamp back to the village is slower, that totally justifies it. But at this point, I believe both runners are fresh out of potion, so it's just the health they've got. So, gonna be rough going for both of them. They're both gonna have to play really clean here. Oh god, with daaanty having to move this wall, Matt might be in his boss fight first. It's going to be really close, if not.
Yeah, it's crazy how close this race has gotten.
Yeah, like, for a while there, it just intuitively looked like daaanty had a sizable edge, with Matt having to go through Ice Palace the second time. But that has been almost completely overturned here, with daaanty having a slight edge, having already killed his boss just as Matt gets Cold Stare out of the shell. But this Tempered Sword fight is going to be a lot easier and a lot quicker for Matt than his original attempt was. The only regret's that he couldn't get all 3 puffs locked in the corner there and get the really quick kill.
Yeah, just a little bit early releasing that spin. Cold Stare has just been his nemesis today.
but that is cold stare down, so he's basically just a crystal cutscene, a mirror, and a flute to one behind at this point. So yeah, Dante with the slight edge at this point, but like I said, he's going to have to play clean to maintain it.
Yeah, this is another really minor thing, but in races where like 5 seconds become a big deal, Dante already has the Turtle Rock portal open, whereas Matt went through the portal at the base of the mountain and climbed up through Super Bunny Cave. So that's just, you know, a few seconds that Dante's going to pick up here in this last Death Mountain climb.
Yep. It's that and the silver arrows for Ganon are the only real advantages that Dante still has in his back pocket to try to preserve this few-second lead he's got. But Ganon's Tower, the Great Equalizer, not able to get into your portal and map checking while trying to get in there, that's going to cost you a few seconds. Anyways, I'll give the usual spiel to chat while we're climbing the mountain here. Normally, we'd ask you guys to guess where the Ganon's Tower big key is and pick a number. I guess I forgot, we still have to clear Tower of Hera, but that's going to be incredibly quick with Herapot. But when we do get into Ganon's Tower, these runners already know where the big key is. They're going to go straight to it. So if you want to try to guess anything, is that Herapot was damn beautiful from Dante.
Yeah, that spin speed, or the hook speed was so nice.
Yeah, that was pretty much instant. But if you want to guess where the big key is, just name a chest. Because don't name a number.
Yeah, and I was going to say, get your guesses ready right now, because you are not going to have much time between the 7th crystal and Dante going into Ganon's Tower.
Yep, he's going to grab a fire shield here. And then he is going to be straight off. Looks like Matt's not going for a super speed base setup. He's going for a bomb setup. And he's having a little bit of trouble finding his pixel. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, he's having a lot of trouble finding his X coordinate here. I think that's it. Yeah, he's good. It did take a lot of pause buffering, so he did lose several seconds there compared to Dante's basically instant super speed setup, but he is up there.
Oh, that was really heads up from Dante too. He still had the hook shot selected from the Tower of Hera climb, and he did the fast climb up the Ganon's Tower steps there, which you normally only see climbing up the big stairs on the west side of Death Mountain. Very heads up from Dante right there.
Matt actually still made very good use of the hook shot's invincibility frames to avoid getting bonked around by Moldorm there too. Like, both showing off good tech with this hook shot here at the end game. But so far, it's looking like a vanilla, no major glitches style climb. Or I say climb, but we're going down still for Dante here. Just going straight through the left side, skip the Stalfos room, skip the Firebar room, skip in the Randomizer room.
And Matt grabbing 10 more arrows off the torch there as well, to get through the mimic rooms.
Yep, Matt absolutely needed those. Dante probably didn't with his silver arrows as long as he played clean. But Matt only had 5 arrows, and with wooden arrows, that's not enough to kill 4 mimics. Granted, there are some pot arrows to be had, like the ones Dante just grabbed, and some in the second mimic's room. But why risk it at all?
Yeah, and all those that Dante is grabbing was foreshadowing this Ice Armos fight that we're doing, so pretty much a vanilla big key today.
Vanilla basement descent for vanilla big key. Or at least same room as vanilla. 1 and 3 that it's vanilla. Missing several silver arrow shots there, but does pull it out. And I guess shoutouts to Kibabit, I think that's how you pronounce the name. Guessing that location pretty much exactly. Left side of the vanilla room. Actually, Matt did grab 5 more arrows, so he's on 30. Optimal Armos is 18. If he gets the quick kill here, that'll leave him with 12 for the mimics. Let's see if he can do it. Got it with just 1 extra arrow spent there, so he has plenty of arrows for mimics now. So he's in good shape.
As daaanty starts his gauntlet, just as Matt begins his climb up GT.
Yep, so daaanty a handful of rooms ahead here. With those silver arrows in his back pocket, that's probably worth about 45 seconds or so, I would guess. Maybe closer to 30. But it's worth some time that he's got. So if he plays clean, he should hold on to it at this point. And that fire shield putting in work, clinking that fireball, keeping him from getting knocked out of his dash.
Also worth noting that daaanty has the mushroom in his inventory, so he has the capability of an emergency fake powder to grab a fairy on the top of GT if he needs it.
He would have to deplete his magic meter for that, but there are 8 torches to light between then and now, and there's a refill in the same room. So I'm looking forward to it. I love seeing that. Now Matt about to enter his Landmola's 2 fight. daaanty did miss some silver arrows, so there could be some time to make up here. Depending on how aggressive Matt's willing to be. And yeah, Matt saving at least a few seconds there, getting it in 1 cycle.
Yeah, magic is going to be an issue for him, though, as he finishes the rest of this climb.
Yeah, I think he's intending to use Lamp in Torches 1. daaanty does empty out his magic meter, so he's going for it. I'm dead certain at this point. So, fake powder, not just for checking magic bat. Good presence of mind from him to nail that one and get the refill.
Ooh, Moldorm 2 fall.
That's not a good follow-up to it. And that's giving Matt just a little bit of time back, closing the gap.
And that was really nice magic management from Matt there. Had, you know, half a bar of magic left at the end, but just enough to get those torches done in the first room.
Yep, and at this point, he is through. Not going to be able to get the refill out of this room, but will be able to get 1 heart and the magic refill. But going to be stuck on that 5.5 hearts, assuming he doesn't lose any. I think that was a poke from Matt on Moldorm 2 there. Nope, it was a spin. No, it must have been a double, 2 singles, and another double.
Yeah, I think that's right. So with a clean Ganon fight, daaanty will be able to take this and has that silver arrows advantage, so he's even got a little bit of margin for error.
It's not a very big one at this point, as Matt's in his own Aga 2 fight, but it's probably about a 30 to 40 second margin there that he's got.
I'm not sure if that was a double on that second cycle.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I think they hit at the same time. And he missed that last shot, so he's going to need a 5th cycle. That's very unfortunate. daaanty does not get the Trident spin, so he's... But I guess... Oh, did he? Did I just miss it? He got the 1 cycle, so he must have. And I was just too busy looking at that Aga 2 fight. Some pause and hook shot buffering to avoid those fire bats. And avoid taking a costly death there.
But phase 3 is really out of the danger zone on this Ganon fight.
Especially with the arrows in hand. And then Matt, in the same boat as daaanty was earlier, getting the phase 2 1 cycle. But nice double from daaanty. Wasn't able to make a triple out of it, but that will be the 4th arrow.
Get your GGs in chat. That was a really clean execution throughout, but especially on that Ganon fight. Both of our runners got that mid-left pattern for phase 1 of Ganon, which is my least favorite by far. And then showed the dash poke strats on Ganon really nicely to get through phase 2 in a single cycle.
Yep. Very well done. And that's a time of 55 minutes, 28 seconds for daaanty. So, chat's already got the GGs out for him. And then Matt going for the silverless here. Not able to get that spin, but gonna get this one and one more here. Ideally with the fire rod, you'd like to get 3 spins per torch cycle, but some Ganon positions just make that not really feasible, like we saw with the top left corner there. And here we go. I think it's what, just 3 more, I think? If I've been counting right. Let's see. No, I miscounted.
Yeah, I've completely lost track, but there it is.
I was off by 1, and that's Ganon exploding on Matt's side, so he's just going to have to cross the bridge.
And meanwhile, we are joined in chat by our winner for this race, daaanty. GGs.
Oh, thanks. GG to Matt. This was bad routing on my part, good routing on his part, and I just feel like I got...
So yeah, my big question is sort of what your approach was for the silvers and the tempered sword and all of that. Were you planning on getting tempered that whole time, or was that sort of an on-the-fly change?
I was planning to not get it. I saw Matt get it and was like, I'm going to go get that. So I already had silvers at that point. And I was like, well, if it's close coming down to the wire, then I'll have an advantage. But I was planning to go, my route was planning to do Master Sword with silvers. And I know that's probably slower, but I was kind of banking on more arrows heading into that Viddy fight. It just didn't pan out. So I'm glad I tempered when I went in there.
And we are joined by Matt as well, so GG.
Push to talk. All right, GG's. Good job, daaanty.
Yeah, GG, Matt.
Yeah, and I think daaanty mentioned it already, but really the biggest thing was, I think, Matt, your route was faster, but a lot more difficult with that fighter sword hammer cold stare.
Yeah. So, this was one of those spoiler seeds where you get like 3 minutes into it for me, and then you realize your route is just complete trash. And I had a few things routed in the wrong order, and so then I moved Ice Palace up a little bit, and what I didn't do was grab the half magic that was in Hyrule Castle, which if I was going to put Ice Palace there, I probably should have done that. And then I just dumpstered the Cold Stare fight. So, and then after that, I was a little bit tilted, was not playing my best, but it was actually still pretty close despite that. So
Yeah, I don't know if you were watching it, but my routing in pod was a complete hot mess. I mixed up the ledge and the bridge for the
I did that
arena,
too.
and then I was like, all right, let's try and hover to the right side to save time. So ran down from the top, failed it, and then like spawned back at the northern part of the room and was like, oh, this is a disaster. Let's just get out of here and do it the vanilla way.
So speaking of that half magic, we talked about this in comms before the race, that there was a chance of maybe grabbing that half magic and then doing Mothula right away. Did either of you think about doing that and just taking out Moth on the first trip to Skull Woods?
No, I don't think it's faster with Tempered Sword. I think that it's like a wash. So why take the risk?
I thought about
that's
but
very
it just
reasonable.
didn't feel right to do. It felt like high risk, low reward. So I was, I always try to find like the super quick way and low percent to do things with these, and then I realized that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. I wanted to do the ice thing. As soon as I saw Matt going into ice, I was like, this is the correct play, because he's gonna have mirror, which leads to the flute, and he's gonna have all the mobility items, and I'm just kind of farting around in pod. But
I even honestly thought about getting mirror and then mirroring out. I even think that might have been faster than going to pod, but I wasn't sure about that. I don't know. This one was kind of tricky. Like the hammer location was kind of tricky, and getting the order right. Like creating the route wasn't that hard, but getting the order right was, I think, the difficult part of this seed.
Yeah, that was definitely the sort of big difference in the early routing. Was it was like sort of rush flute or make sure I have as much safety as possible before taking that Ice Palace dip. So yeah, that was definitely a tough call to make in the limited time that you have.
It was funny because originally I moved Ice Palace into my route after Hookshot, so I was going to go there with Green Mail, Fighter Sword, and 5 Hearts. Then I was like, oh, that's not a good idea. I should probably go up Death Mountain first. And even that wasn't enough. Mind you, that was 100% my fault. Like, with the equipment I had on that Cold Stare fight, there's no way I should ever die there. Like that, I just messed up.
And it feels bad when that happens, but unfortunately, for better or worse, it's just part of playing the game.
Yeah, game's hard, man.
Yeah, I can attest.
yeah, low percent is. I really like playing low percentile stuff, but when you have to do the routing too, I've said this about the spoiler tournament the whole time. I love this concept. This is the first year I've done it, and I do so much better like with the whole league settings where someone's talking the spoiler log into my ear or just telling me where to go and just letting me do the low percent stuff. Like that's like primo for me. Like planning the route, I am awful at, and I feel like I waste probably at least a third to 50% of the time just scrolling back and forth in Notepad.
Yeah, there is a reason that I often say that this is the most difficult format of randomizer to race and compete in. Like, in my opinion, it's not even close.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And especially because as you get further and further in the tournament, you're just like pushing yourself to run at even lower and lower percents, because you're like, if I can do this on 7 hearts, my opponent can do it on 6, right? And then you think you have to match them.
Yeah, it's kind of like the one thing that's really nice about being able to see where your opponent is to kind of guesstimate, some of your optional safeties. It's nice to be able to route some of those in. If there had been more heart containers along the way, I may have skip that blue mail and stuff, because that was kind of, out of the way in a sense, but at the time I was behind, so I was like, I can't afford to take a death, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I don't watch the stream at all, so I had no idea what was going on. I looked at the race channel before I dropped in again, and I saw daaanty wasn't done. And that actually gave me some hope, because I was like, if he's not done now, then he probably made a mistake too. But it would have been just a few seconds before he finished, though.
Yeah, because I think he was on phase 4 when you were dropping in.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Unfortunately, getting hope in that manner is very rough. I feel bad.
Whatever.
I always feel bad when I get sniped in the Ganon fight, and I kind of always feel bad doing it to somebody else because I know how it feels. So
to be fair, though, the Ganon fight's like 2 minutes, and a 2-minute win in a spoiler log seed is a pretty big win.
Yeah, I guess that's true for spoiler.
But yeah, any other final thoughts from you two about this seed? It was definitely a lot of fun to watch, and some really great execution on both sides.
GG's again to Matt. Thank you guys for doing the commentary, the restream, the tracking, all that. Thanks Sahabot for not giving us a crazy seed like that was broadcast right before us, because I didn't want to have to deal with that. And looking forward to next week.
Yeah, I'll just echo what daaanty said. Thank you for the comms, restream, tracking, all that. GG's daaanty. Good luck in your next matches.
Yo, thanks, man. You too.
And I guess on that note, we didn't have really a good chance to shout him out during the race with all this going on, but we did have Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuna tracking and pressing buttons for us and keeping everything lit up, keeping chat informed, correcting me when I got things wrong. So shout outs to him.
And yes, also dropping those links into chat. Be sure to give both of these runners a follow. As we said, they are excellent link to the past rando runners, and they're a good follow on Twitch, so be sure to show them some love.
Yep, definitely great people, worth the follow. And I think that will be it for us. I've been Reg, my partner's been Cool Papa Bell, and I will leave the last word to you.
Absolutely. Thank you all for watching us here on Speed Gaming. Be sure to keep your eyes on the Speed Gaming networks for more great rando action and more of the spoiler tournament. And we will see you all here next time.